All right, part two here. So, again, this has been sort of transformative, but like I said, there's really nothing over there that like keeps him going over there out of mystery. It's all these sort of mundane items. Now we get to the part that usually gets people at least asking some questions or some theories, and that's fine. I think this sort of goes. This story sort of goes in a different way than theories and necessary theories. But anyway, in the morning, he had Arlene call in for him. But he doesn't go to work. Has the wife do that, call in for him. Showers, dress, takes breakfast. Tried to start a book. Tried to start a book implies couldn't get going. Went out for a walk, but after a while, goes to the apartment. Stopped at the Stones' door. Wants to hear the cat. It's like that thing on the other side. Like if I could just hear it, I would feel better. And then you know what? He decides to go over there. And now we get this moment where he's able to go into that room, that apartment, unencumbered. Wife's not home, and he's going to be able to spend as much time in there as he wants. So like he's sort of peeked into the other side. Now he gets to kind of go all out. And does he ever? Inside it seemed cooler than his apartment, darker too. He wondered if the plants had something to do with the temperature of the air. He looked out the window, moved through each room, considering everything that fell under his gaze, carefully, one object at a time. Again, ashtrays, furniture, utensils, the clock. He saw everything. But what is it about this place that's so, appealing to him, to the point where it's changed, or he feels like it's changed his life? He lays down on the bed, stares at the ceiling, lay for a while with his eyes closed, and he moved his hand under his belt, tried to recall what day he was, tried to remember when they were ever going to be home. Wonder if they would ever return. Again, this is a crazy thought. He tried to remember. He cannot remember the faces, the way they talked to us. He sighed with effort, rolled off the bed. It's implied there that he does something sexual. We don't get it because, again, Carver's not about these explicit details. He sighed, rolled off the bed. He opened the door to the closet. Now he's literally becoming the Stones, or literally, figuratively becoming the Stones. Pulls out a Hawaiian shirt. Found some Bermuda shorts, shed his own clothes, and stepped into the shorts and the shirt. He looked in the mirror again. He went to the living room, poured himself a drink, sipped it on his way back to the bedroom. Put on his blue shirt, dark suit, blue and white tie, black wingtip shoes. The glass was empty. He went for another drink. Now again, I should go ahead and bring it up here. Carver's stories. And you'll see it in this first collection, and then especially in the second collection. And then on to the third. Alcoholism is certainly a prevalent theme. And as the characters grow more and more desperate, you'll see it become more of a problem, perhaps. So not unlike Frank Wheeler feeling uncomfortable, and you could sort of time it like clockwork to him going for a drink. We see that too with these Carver characters. The Carver characters quite often, though, aren't in as quite good position as the Wheelers, so it's a little different. The puppy say hi here. Say hi. She's getting very good at her walks. All right. So he dresses up in the bedroom again, crossed his legs, smiled, observing himself in the mirror. Telephone rang twice and fell silent. He finished the drink off and took off the suit. Okay. So got that motif I said, repetitive of these Carver characters looking into the mirror, or just simply touching their face, opening their eyes, closing their eyes, opening them up again, hoping they're sort of transported in somebody else. Never happens. They're always the same, often depressed person. Another motif you'll see in Carver is the use of a telephone ringing as a sort of objective correlative. Just in the stories that we have coming up, telephones are used quite a bit, actually. Most often, it's a warning to the character that the outside world is still going on. Like you may be tentatively feeling better about your circumstance because of this sort of false hope you've given to whatever it is you're doing. In this case, just spending more time over the neighbors, or in the case of Earl Ober forcing his wife, berating his wife into losing weight. And we don't have a phone call there, but it's always, or oftentimes when the phone rings, it's a reminder. It's a reminder in, it's like the Frost poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, when the speaker of the poem is contemplating death and how wonderful that would be. Maybe you could do something with that in this story. That maybe that's what that other room signifies. I don't think so, but no, it's a possibility. Anyway, the Robert Frost poem. I know you've all read it. If you haven't, you can look it up. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. And the sky is out in the middle of the woods. The snow starts to fill the woods, and he stands there and waits. He's got a horse with him, and he just sort of stands there and watches it all. And he just sort of wishes he could sort of fall asleep in it. Horse, though, rings its bell, as if to say, we got to get back to town. And that bell is a reminder of all these duties he has left to do that don't stop just with sort of our sense of daydreaming. So phone rings, it's a reminder of that this is not permanent. And it's also not helping. Anyway, he finishes the drink. Immediately after the phone rings, reminding him of that, he rummages through the top drawers and then he looks in Mrs. Stone's drawers. He gets a pair of panties, a bra, steps into the panties, fastens the bra, looked through the closet for an outfit. He put on a black and white checkered skirt, tried to zip it up. It says tried to zip it up there. I'm always wondering if that means like it just didn't fit, but he went with it. Put on a burgundy blouse, buttoned up the front, considered the shoes, but he understood that they would not fit yet because that's impractical. For a long time, he looked out the living room window from behind the curtain, and he returned to the bedroom and put everything away. Now, Carver does not explain this. I think that does leave the door open, as obvious, for possible misinterpretation of this or over-interpretation of this. Personally, I just think it's this character being other people. I don't think there's anything more to it than that, although, I think you're welcome to go there with your analysis. I love that it's not explained. I think to explain it in this particular case would be to cheapen it and make it, here's why this guy does this. That we don't know why he does this, again, jars us a little bit. And, hopefully, you've had enough books this semester. We've looked at enough things this semester. I know I keep it pretty tightly focused as far as these 290s go. Sometimes you get a lot more genres, but this is what I'm best at. And hopefully, though, you've seen enough to know that there's not a one-size-fits-all for how stories can move you. Monroe jars me with every single one of her stories, and we get an abundance of information about characters' motivations. Carver, I'm equally as jarred in a different way, where we get very few motivations, especially in these early stories, as to motivations. Whatever the case, this is what makes these characters feel better. But it's not permanent. It's not going to last. He's not hungry. She's not eating much either. They looked at each other slightly. Love how they can't even talk about it. Again, that comes back to communication. Another motif we'll see, characters not being able to verbalize what it is that ails them. Make yourself comfortable. I go across. So she goes across the hall. He tries to concentrate on the news, can't watch the news, tries to read the paper. Finally went across the hall. Door's locked. You still there? It's me, honey. She answers the door. Was I gone so long? Well, you were. Was I? I guess I must have been playing with Kitty. He studied her. She looked away, her hands still resting on the doorknob. It's funny, she said, to go in someone's place like that, but she can't explain it in words. That's why Fat's such a great opening for Carver, because many of the characters fall into that trap or fall into that problem, or they can't put it into words, this experience that they've sort of had. He noticed white lint clinging to the back of her sweater. The color was high in her cheeks. This suggests that, like he had, she had possibly laid on the bed as well, in the same way. Damn, she just remembered. She didn't feed Kitty or do any watering. I love that it's gotten to the point where, at this point, the whole purpose of going over there was to feed the cat, water the plants, and that doesn't even get done. I don't think so. Just a minute. I'll light my cigarettes. I'll go back with you. So now you get this transformative moment. Like both of them can go over there and finally be other people, and their lives will be made better because they have the grass on the other side. Although we've pointed out fairly clearly, I don't think it's any greener. It's like The Road Not Taken, the poem, another Frost poem that gets totally misinterpreted. Both paths look the same. We tell ourselves they don't, but they do. In this case, the grass is the same grass, but they want to go there. Anyway, I guess I should tell you. And then she titillates him a little bit. I found some pictures. What kind of pictures? You can see for yourself. No kidding. Where? In a drawer. No kidding. And then she said, maybe they won't come back. This is a vocalization of a thought he'd had, and she's sort of surprised that she said it. Of course, it's not possible. I mean, they're going to come back, and even if they didn't, it's not like they could just switch into those lives. It could happen. Anything could happen. Or maybe they'll come back in, and she doesn't know what she's trying to say. They held hands for the short walk across the hall. When he spoke, they could barely hear her voice. The key. Give it to me. What? The key. You have the key. My God, I left the key inside. Tried the knob. It was locked. She tried the knob. Didn't turn. He opened his arms, and it's like they're panicked. And some people misread this scene because the way they treat it is like a tornado is getting ready to come and tear down the whole building. They're panicked because they can't get back into that room. Why are they so panicked? Because the illusion has been punctured. No longer can they believe or pretend to be other people. So they're unable to get back in, they're unable to escape, and they're forced to deal with the reality of their situation without this quick fix-it thing. And that's the problem. I've had people read, like, why are they so scared at the end? Like, and somebody was like, well, it's because they can't feed the cat. The cat's going to die now without any food. And that's not the point. They can have the apartment manager come and open the door. What the problem is for them is that the illusion has been ruptured, and they're just left with their own selves to deal with. They can't escape anymore as neighbors. So I'll just continue on. We'll look at They're Not Your Husband, which there's some pretty shitty characters. Shitty, not poorly drawn, but just sort of bad people, or people with some issues, and a lot of Carver stories. Earl Ober takes the cake, though. You won't see a more vile sort of character in Carver, because Carver, even for the most part, humanizes everybody. But Earl Ober, and it's to the point where Earl Ober's name is an anagram for a real bore. I just feel like Carver was going all out with, he's just going to make this guy just sort of terrible. Another case of a story, They're Not Your Husband, where a character, in this case one character, and then he sort of convinces his wife of it, feels like the way out of a, in this case, more desperate situation. They have serious money problems. He's unemployed at the moment, and she's obviously having to work more, stressed financially, and he feels like there's one thing they need to focus on, and it becomes her weight. And why that comes up is sort of very interesting. This is a good story to point out, Carver, like how he's able to sort of give the story circulation, blood flow, with it being so short and so minimal. Now, I will point out that They're Not Your Husband is maybe the one story that we'll read from Carver that feels very symmetrical, because it opens up at the coffee shop and ends at the coffee shop. The end, of course, is by Earl's doing, because he wants to sort of recreate this moment that gave him this idea. Of course, that fails miserably. But some things that give Carver story circulation. One is there's always some sort of physical action going on. Love you, babe. That was my wife. There's always some sort of physical action going on. Even if it's nothing big, it's characters moving their hands, there's figures, there's just, touching their face in some way, which you see Carver characters in the time of Corona, they would be very much in trouble. There's always some sense of menace, probably even felt it in the neighbors. what's going to happen? Everybody always goes to kill. Are they gonna wait there and kill the Stones when they come back? Always some sense of minutes. Dark humor carries it. These are upsetting stories, and although I figure I'm not doing you a favor if I don't teach you things that upset our preconceptions in some ways, or so I just always assume that's what you're getting into. But I was taken aback one time when I was talking about trigger warnings at one point with some students, and actually some former students, and one student actually mentioned that it was Carver stories that sort of jarred her and sort of brought some bad experience back. And I'd never expected that. So it was a good lesson for me that everything can do that. You just always got to be prepared for that. I think once you've read your Shakespeare, you know that anything's possible in literature. But that being said, there is humorous moments in Carver. It's dark humor, but it's humorous nonetheless. And that repetition, like we talked about last time, of language does sort of give it a flow. It's like the chorus of a song. We come back to it. It's a pattern. All these things give it life. Okay, let's look at They're Not Your Husband. We'll point out too, there's a great, everybody's sort of stuck. There's a great movie, looking for it on my shelf, I have it, called Shortcuts by one of the great directors of all time named Robert Altman. You may have seen it. It is a movie that at the time I watched it, I had no idea who Raymond Carver was. And as I started to read Raymond Carver, it all felt like, some parts of it felt like a dream sort of coming back to me. And I realized it was because this movie Shortcuts is based on 9 Carver stories. Now, Altman resets the story. He takes the stories that are usually set in upper California or Oregon or Washington and sets them in LA, and he has the characters all know each other. But Neighbors and They're Not Your Husband are actually 2 of those stories. And in Neighbors, Iron Man is one of the neighbors, actually, Robert Downey Jr. And for those of you who are very, very good music buffs, Tom Waits, the singer Tom Waits, plays Earl Ober in They're Not Your Husband, the adaptation of that. So it's called Shortcuts. I'd check it out. And I'm going to stop this one here, and then we'll get to the third part.